All right, broadcast services, are we ready to get started?
Hello, Chair. This is Wakanda Carter from Broadcast. We are ready to go whenever you're ready.
Thank you, Wakanda. We will get started and we'll call this meeting of Senate Finance to order. And Secretary, will you call the roll?
Senator Dennis, Senator Kieckeffer, Senator Goycochea, Senator Hammond, Senator Ratty, Senator Severs-Gansert, Senator Canzaro, Senator Dondero Loop, Chair Brooks.
Here, and if you could, nope, I think we have everyone. And Senator Kieckeffer is excused, and we can get started, and we'll get started. We have 5 bills on the agenda tonight, and then public comment. And we will take it slightly out of order, though. I'm going to take 417 first. And 417 makes appropriations to the, and authorizes expenditures of money by the Nevada Supreme Court. And so I believe we have Chief Justice Hardesty to present on 417 tonight. And you can go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. This is James Hardesty, Chief Justice of the Nevada Supreme Court. Other members of the Administrative Office of the Court staff are with me in the conference room. The new State Director, Catherine Stocks, the Deputy Director, John McCormick, our Manager of Budgets, Todd Myler, and Rick Stephanie, who is the IT Director for the courts. There are 2 one-shots that we were invited by the General Finance Office to submit. One addresses the e-filing system, and the second is the issue surrounding the J-Works project, for which there is some history, and I'll briefly touch on that. First, the e-filing system. Why an e-filing system? As many of you know, e-filing improves access to justice, better access to court filings for both attorneys and self-represented litigants, more efficient processing of court documents, and creates a system that is integrated and collaborative with other e-filing systems across the state. To remind the committee, in 2019, the legislature approved funding for a study to be determined, or to determine the scope, estimated costs, and potential timeline for making e-filing available in all of the courts of the state. The study was completed in May of 2020, and what you have in front of you with this one shot is the funding for the initial phase of a 3-year or 4-year project to effectuate e-filing throughout the entire state. If approved, the project would span at least the next 2 biennia before completion. The one-shot request would only fund the first phase for implementation. Additional funding would be needed for future biennia, for future phases, and licensing costs. The specific request is $1,336,800 in general fund, together with $203,533 in authorizations for license fees from new users that would connect to the system. This will allow for the selection and engagement of a vendor in fiscal year 2022 and initial courts coming into the system in fiscal year 2023. The next phase would be in 2024-25. That appropriation would be $2,858,000 under the current estimates, together with license fees of $585,468, which would allow the rest of the trial courts to be brought into the system. The total implementation cost for both biennia would be $4,983,901, depending upon contract negotiations. I'm happy to entertain any questions. As I said before, this is an integrated process and will take some time to do. For those of the committee who know, and practice law, you may be aware that there are existing e-filing systems in some of the courts of our state. The intent is not to replace those, but rather to connect and integrate with those and expand the capabilities of e-filing throughout the entire state. One very brief example of the benefit of e-filing, if we had it, during the COVID, we had a tremendous number of people coming into the 8th Judicial District Court, the courthouse down there, and other courthouses around the state. We tried to divert those folks away from the Las Vegas Justice Court, for example, through the use of e-filing, which would have eliminated or reduced significantly the number of people that came into the courthouse and improved efficiencies for access to justice. Regrettably, not all of those e-filing systems were available or operating in all case types, and that's part of the issue that has to be resolved through this process. Happy to answer any questions, and we have the staff here to answer any technical questions.
Thank you, Justice Hardesty. Appreciate that. And if there's anything we learned in the last year, it's that electronic access to our state and government is more necessary than ever. Committee members, do you have any questions on Senate Bill 417? Oh, Senator Severs-Ganser.
Thank you, Chair Brooks. So in talking about your expected total cost of about $5 million, it sounds like that's not in contract right now, that that's your estimate. And do you expect to have a contract signed so that you know what the costs are even for this phase and the next phase?
This is Justice Hardesty to the Senator. Ultimately, yes. Obviously, we haven't contracted with anybody yet, though we have the appropriation. We do have the management. You have the management study that was undertaken that estimated these costs. But our hope would be that we could even do better than this. And quite frankly, depending upon what I'm expecting our staff to do, Senator, is to start all over. We have the management report. It's a little bit dated. When I say start all over, dig down and make sure that we've covered all the aspects. We would bring in a committee of IT personnel from the various courts to be included in the process before we go out for contract. But this would be an RFP project.
Thank you. And I guess that was part of my question. So it hasn't gone out to RFP, and I would agree with you that collaborating with the other courts is really important, because we've had the experience where we buy software and it doesn't integrate very well. So and I do recognize that there's a lot of manual filings that happen right now. So I think this will be a great improvement for the court. So thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Any other questions from the committee on that particular part of Senate Bill 417? All right. If you wanted to, I believe there's another section to Senate Bill 417 to discuss. Did you want to present that?
Yes, Chair. Thank you for the accommodation. Section 2 deals with the second one-shot that the General Finance Office suggested that we include in our one-shot requests. Some of you may recall a little bit of history on this subject. As you know, many of the courts, 46 in fact, operate on an existing case management system. It's deployed in 46 trial courts across the state. We entered into a contract with JWorks that began in 2013. In testimony that I believe I gave in January of 2019, we indicated that because of our dissatisfaction with the vendor, there was possible litigation. A contract was subsequently renegotiated, and the vendor, in connection with that contract, extended a number of concessions to the court that resulted in reduced costs. We decided to persist with them in the effort to install the JWorks project. And with regard to that point, the contracts currently provide that they are required to meet a schedule in which they have a go-live requirement of May 17th in the Walker River Court in that township. If successful, then the proposed appropriation in this section would not be needed. If not successful, however, and as I mentioned in 2019, if not successful, this appropriation would be necessary in order for the courts to pursue an alternative vendor and persist in our arbitration proceedings or litigation against the existing vendor for their failure to have met the court's obligations. Not too many courts end up suing these vendors for non-performance, but I can tell you that we've made it clear to the vendor in this case that we're tired of any further delays in this matter, and that's why I can demonstrate, if you need copies of the document, very clear, definitive requirements specified in agreements that were negotiated to compel these outcomes. Our hope would be that we would be able to build on the success that they've achieved in the last few months. I don't know how it will turn out. We'll probably know more in the next 2 weeks. So for budget purposes, it kind of depends on that outcome. We can advise your staff and of course the committee as soon as we have firm information by the middle of May.
Thank you, Justice Hardesty. Does the committee have any questions on the J-Works section 2 of this bill? I do not see any questions, so I appreciate that, and we will go to see if we have anyone on the phone lines in support of Senate Bill 417.
Thank you, Chair Brooks. We are currently on support testimony on Senate Bill 417. If you have recently joined the call and would like to testify in support, please press *9 now to take your place in the queue. Chair, there are no callers in support at this time.
Thank you. Do we have anyone in opposition to Senate Bill 417?
Thank you, Chair. We are currently on opposition testimony on Senate Bill 417. If you have joined the call and would like to testify in opposition, please press *9 now to take your place in the queue. Chair, there are no callers in opposition at this time.
And finally, is there anyone on the line in a neutral position on Senate Bill 417?
Thank you, Chair. We are currently in neutral testimony on Senate Bill 417. If you have joined the call and would like to testify in neutral, please press *9 now to take your place in the queue. Chair, there are no callers in neutral at this time.
All right, thank you. I think that will conclude our hearing on Senate Bill 417. And yes, do you have something further you wanted to say?
My apologies, Mr. Chair. I wanted to add one point. This is Justice Hardesty. In paragraph 3 in both sections 1 and 2 of the bill, it provides that under standard practices, the state would terminate funding at the end of the biennium, and there's no assurance that the funding for the remaining project would be provided. This, I am concerned about, presents a serious problem in negotiating with any vendor, and frankly, would raise questions about our ability to phase in a multi-year program such as this. I would hope that the committee, if it is appropriate to request, and if you're open to approving this measure, particularly as it relates to the e-filing project, would amend those provisions out and clear that this funding is not capped or limited to that biennium. But that's, I think it's going to be very problematic to engage vendors on a multi-biennium project if that limitation exists.
And question for staff, would that need to be presented as an amendment to 417?
Yes, Mr. Chair, Wayne Thorley for the record, LCB Fiscal. If the committee wished to move forward with that, an amendment would need to be requested for the bill.
And thank you, Mr. Thorley. And Justice Hardesty, so if you could work with our fiscal staff to come up with a amendment language that would accomplish those, and then we can consider that.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I greatly appreciate the consideration.
And thank you. And do we have any comments on that last suggestion for an amendment? So when we see that, we'll be reviewing that and having another hearing. All right, thank you very much. And
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thanks, committee.
That closes our hearing on Senate Bill 417. And we will open up Senate Bill 410. And 410 makes an appropriation to the Central Repository for Nevada Records of Criminal History.
Good evening, Chair and members of the committee. Can you hear me and see me?
Yes, thank you. Go ahead, Ms. McKay.
Thank you. I am Mindy McKay, Division Administrator of the Department of Public Safety's Records, Communications, and Compliance Division. I am here to introduce Senate Bill 410. Section 1 of Senate Bill 410 provides $18,643,998 of one-shot appropriations across the 22-23 biennium to support the ongoing Central Repositories Nevada Criminal Justice Information System, NCJIS, modernization program that will span over several biennium through 2025 for implementation and potentially thereafter for ongoing maintenance. As a reminder, this program will require additional general fund appropriations for future biennium. For brevity, I will forego explaining this program unless the committee would like me to provide a brief overview. There should be a few letters of support posted on Nellis attached to this bill for your review. With that, my team and I are happy to answer any questions, and thank you for your time this evening.
Thank you, Ms. McKay. Does the committee have any questions on Senate Bill 410 for Ms. McKay or her team? Senator Severs-Gansert?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm taking Senator Kekeffer's spot and asking questions tonight. So thank you for being here, Ms. McKay. Do you have an idea of how much more money we need to spend? So first of all, I recognize that you need the system because I know that you are getting faxes for a variety of things and you're manually having to process things. So I understand that you need this. Do you have an expectation or do you have an RFP that basically outlines what the future expenses will be?
Mindy McKay for the record. Thank you for the question. So we have already gone through the RFP process. We have chosen a vendor and we are in the throes of this effort. So we're right in the middle of it right now. As for the remaining amount of money that we may have to come back and request in 24-25, we're anticipating $19 to $20 million to finish the implementation.
Thank you for that. And when did you start the project and what was the expectation of the total cost? Or so are you within the total cost of what you originally thought when you brought this forward?
Mindy McKay for the record. Yes, we are within the cost and actually we're a little bit below the cost because at the beginning of the effort during this biennium, we had some delay in hiring the staff to staff up the program management office. So we're actually below the original estimated cost. Originally it was estimated for the entire implementation effort to be at 57 million and we are down to 54 million at this point. And so total over the last biennium, this coming up biennium, which is what we're here tonight for, and the next biennium total should be about 54 million for implementation.
Thank you.
Thank you, Senator, and thank you, Ms. McKay. Did any committee members have any other questions on Senate Bill 410? Oh, Senator Don Darrell.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Ms. McKay. Did you reference letters of support? Did I hear you say that? I don't.
Yes, ma'am.
I don't see them. Would you just be able to give me a reference of who this would benefit? Or who is supporting you?
Mindy McKay, for the record, yes, thank you. And they are under Nellis and under the exhibit portion of this meeting tonight. Mostly those letters of support are coming from our criminal justice agencies. We do also have that are going to benefit from this civil agencies throughout the state, all the way from agencies who have to submit fingerprints for employment, licensing volunteers, to federal firearms licensed gun dealers to process firearms background checks, as well as employers, mostly like casinos, that utilize our civil name check in lieu of a fingerprint check for employment and volunteers. That's who's going to benefit from this. So a very large amount of customers across the state, to the tune of thousands, from the criminal justice arena to the civil arena.
Thank you very much. And I'll just micro focus into my world. So this will help us fingerprint teachers.
Mindy McKay, for the record, yes, ma'am. It'll go from weeks, if not months, during the pandemic down to days, because it'll be automated and accessible through a portal.
That's the happy dance I want to hear. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. And I think probably you're going to pass a few bills this session that create more fingerprints. So even more important. So I have access to this on Nellis under the exhibits, but I think there might be either you're signed in or you're not signed in the public view or not the public view. So I'm going to go ahead and for the purposes of the committee, we have support letters from Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department, the City of Las Vegas, the Cannabis Control Board, Mesquite Police Department, White Pine Sheriffs, Lincoln County Sheriff, Elko Police Department, Department of Motor Vehicles, and the Nevada Sheriff and Chiefs Association. And those are those letters of support are online. And we also have someone in the audience to support as well. So when we get to that portion of the hearing, we'll bring them up. So do we have any other questions on Senate Bill 410 from the committee? Senator Severs-Gansert.
Thank you, Chair Brooks. I have more of a logistics question. I'm not sure why they're not public record when we start the meeting versus, but why we have to be logged in. So can anybody be logged in and see those, or is it just legislators who log in to be able to see those, or how does that work?
I do not know that that is the case.
And
That's just how I got
to
to it and how Senator Dennis didn't get to
Right.
it. But maybe the committee. Oh,
So I couldn't see it either, but I logged in under my account and then I could see them. But I don't know if that means everybody can see them if they have an account.
So usually it is you,
Well,
so you have to usually wait for the meeting to start before they will go live on the website. Once you do that, if you refresh your Nellis page, you should be able to get there. And the easiest way to do that is to go to the meetings and floor session page and click on that committee. And then on the side, there'll be a bar that you can scroll down. You can see all the exhibits for all of the bills. And I am not logged in. I'm on a public portal.
So and you know what, I realize I actually can't see them from here, but I do think I can see them if I log in and I go to the left, sort of on the agenda side of the meeting.
Yes, and I am not logged in and
Right.
can see them. So
And
sometimes you just have to refresh. No.
So that's probably a software issue that if exhibits show up sort of on the agenda side, it should also show up on the when you look at a tab that's across the top. So something to work on. Thank you.
all right. We just had a fun conversation about Nellis. So any other questions on Senate Bill 410 from the committee? All right, we don't. Thank you, Ms. McKay. Thank you for presenting that and answering our questions this evening. We will go to, and I'll start with the phones, we will go to support for Senate Bill 410. And if we could, if we do have the letters that I just stated that were sent in support that are in detail. If you're going to give support and you've already submitted a letter, just try to summarize to the extent possible. And if somebody who is giving support before you completely nailed it, and all you have to say is ditto, that's cool too. But we do have your letters here, and we'd love to hear from the supporters. So, broadcast, can you go to the phone?
Thank you, Chair Brooks. To testify in support on Senate Bill 410, please press *9 now to take your place in the queue. Caller with the last 3 digits, 196, please slowly state and spell your name for the record. You will have 2 minutes and may begin.
Good evening, Chairman Brooks and members of the Senate Finance Committee. I'm Eric Spratley, S-P-R-A-T-L-E-Y, the Executive Director of the Nevada Sheriffs and Chiefs Association, here in support of Senate Bill 410, and appreciate this bill being brought forward to you today. I did submit a letter, but I want to just let you know, most everyone you hear from this session will tell you that theirs is the most important bill before you. And there is truth to that. But each entity that requested support for their bill will admit that their entity cannot exist without public safety. This appropriation will fund the core of public safety in Nevada. Not just law enforcement, but every single participant who touches the criminal justice system in some way will be affected by your approval of this bill. With that, we thank the committee for considering this and ultimately approving Senate Bill 410. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Caller, please slowly state and spell your name for the record. You will have 2 minutes and may begin.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. This is Chuck Callaway, C-A-L-L-A-W-A-Y, representing the Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department. And to use your words, Mr. Chair, the guy before me nailed it, so I will just say ditto. We are in support. Thank you.
Caller with the last 3 digits, 887. Please slowly state and spell your name for the record. You will have 2 minutes and may begin.
Good evening, Chairman Brooks, Vice Chair Dennis, and members of the Senate Finance Committee. My name is Corey Solferino. It's C-O-R-E-Y, last of S as in Sam, O-L, F as in Frank, E-R-I-N-O, and I have the pleasure of representing the Washoe County Sheriff's Office. On behalf of the men and women of the Washoe County Sheriff's Office and Sheriff Darren Balaam, we are in strong support of SB 410 and encourage your support as well. I also had the pleasure of serving 2 interims on the Advisory Commission on the Administration of Justice Subcommittee on Criminal Justice Information Sharing, and understand wholeheartedly the antiquated methodology that's affiliated with our poor failing and old CJIS system. So this is much needed and great enhances public safety for the citizens of Nevada. We encourage your support and thank you for this opportunity to support it.
We are currently in support testimony on Senate Bill 410. If you have recently joined the call and would like to testify in support, please press *9 now to take your place in the queue. Chair, there are no additional callers in support at this time.
Thank you. Could you see if we have anyone on the line in opposition to Senate Bill 410?
Certainly, thank you, Chair. To testify in opposition.
Before we do that, I missed a supporter that's here in person, and so could you come up and offer your support testimony?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, Chair Brooks, Vice Chair Dennis. For For the record, my name is Joan Ebert. I'm the State Superintendent of Public Instruction. I want to give a huge shout out to DPS for the work that they do with the Department of Education. They process over 13,000, some years it's been up to almost 16,000 sets of fingerprints for us. What has transpired most recently, as we all know, there's an educator shortage across the nation, and so we are losing people that we can hire because we are not automated. Other states are automated, and they're being able to qualify the educators and then being able to hire them. So I just add that for the record. Senator Darrell Loop hit a lot of those other pieces. So I really encourage and support this bill and hope that it moves forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Superintendent, and thank you, and then Senator Darrell Loop.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd just like one clarification. Will this mean that, Superintendent, will this mean that people won't need to have multiple sets of fingerprints now because it'll be digital?
I do not believe so. I would need to double check with my staff.
Okay, because I know in the past, teachers have had to have, or educators in general, have had to have multiple fingerprint sets because we were not digitized, and so they didn't see each other, if I remember correctly.
Superintendent Ebert, for the record, again, I would need to double check on that. I actually just had mine done within the last 2 years, and it was a very long process. But I wanted to come home, so that was a good thing.
Thank you, Superintendent.
Mr. Chair.
Go ahead, Senator.
Thank you, Chair Brooks. So Mindy McKay might be able to answer that, but I've done a lot of work on finger or background checks with fingerprints, and I guess she's back on, so maybe she can answer that, because I know you have to go through the FBI, and sometimes they don't allow you to do that. Go ahead, if you'd like to get the answer.
Go ahead, Ms. McKay.
Mindy McKay for the record. Yes, thank you so much. I appreciate this opportunity to explain the process. So if there are multiple purposes or authorities, so multiple statutes that authorize fingerprints to be submitted for different purposes. So for example, if there's a statutory authority for fingerprints for employment, that is for employment purposes for that specific governmental entity for that specific category of employment. So a teacher or a bus driver or whatever the fingerprints may be, whatever the purpose is for those fingerprints. If there's a statutory authority for fingerprints to be submitted for licensing under a different governmental entity, then that has to be a separate set of fingerprints. And unfortunately, yes, we do have to submit those fingerprints multiple times depending on the purpose of the fingerprints: employment, licensing, governmental entity, the category for which they're going to be employed or licensed, etc. So if anybody has any questions afterward, would like to reach out to me to discuss this further, it is a little bit comprehensive and involved. I'm more than happy to sit down with you over the phone, virtual, in your office and discuss this further.
Thank you, Ms. McKay. Appreciate that. Thank you, Superintendent. And now we can go, BPS, we can go and see if we have anyone in opposition on the phone.
Thank you, Chair. To testify in opposition on Senate Bill 410, please press *9 now to take your place in the queue. Chair, there are no callers in opposition at this time.
Thank you. So that will bring, could you see if we have anyone on the phones in neutral position on this bill?
Certainly. Thank you, Chair. To testify in neutral on Senate Bill 410, please press *9 now to take your place in the queue. Chair, there are no callers in neutral at this time.
Thank you. So that brings the hearing on Senate Bill 410 to an end, and we will close that hearing, and we will open up on Senate Bill 411. And Senate Bill 411 makes appropriations to the Division of Parole and Probation for the Investigation Division of the Department of Public Safety. Welcome, Mr. Kame. Go right ahead when you're ready.
All right, I wasn't sure what order we were gonna do this in, but I'll jump in. So, 411, talks about parole and probation and talks about the investigation division. So I'm the chief of the investigation division. And I
Excuse
will
me, sir.
present-
We're having kind of a hard
Yes.
time hearing you. If you can maybe get a little closer to the mic or something, and we'll see if that works. And now I think you might be muted. I can't hear you at all.
How about now?
Much better. Thank you.
Okay. As I was saying, I'm Pat Conway, Division Chief for the Investigation Division, and I just want to be clear that 411 discusses both the Investigation Division and the Parole and Probation Division. So I'm going to talk about computer replacement in my division, and I believe somebody from Parole and Probation is there. Otherwise, I can touch on it. I'll just do a real briefly here. The Investigation Division is requesting the replacement of 22 computers in state fiscal year 2022 and 23 computers in state fiscal year 2023 for a total cost of $66,384. This request complies with each computer replacement schedule, as the existing computers we are seeking to replace were purchased between August 2016 and June 2018. And that concludes the piece of this for the Investigation Division. I'd be happy to answer any questions if they're there. And I believe the chief of PMP is available as well for his piece.
Thank you, Mr. Conway. Do we have any questions from the committee on Section 2 of Senate Bill 411? I do not see any, so I appreciate it. Thank you. And we can move to Parole and Probation, Section 1 of Senate Bill 411.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman. This is Tom Lawson, Chief of the Division of Parole and Probation within the Department of Public Safety. As Chief Kame mentioned, this is a bill addressing replacement computers in line with each replacement schedule. The Parole and Probation section of this bill relates to 169 replacement computers at a cost of $313,157. And this would keep us in line with each replacement schedule for computers that are due for replacement in the next biennium. And with that, I welcome any comments or questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lawson. Does the committee have any questions on Section 1 of 411 for Mr. Lawson? I do not see any, so thank you very much. We will then go to the phones and see if we have anyone on the line in support of Senate Bill 411.
Thank you, Chair Brooks. To testify in support on Senate Bill 411, please press *9 now to take your place in the queue. Chair, there are no callers in support at this time.
Can we see if we have anyone on the phone in opposition to Senate Bill 411?
Certainly, thank you, Chair. To testify in opposition on Senate Bill 411, please press *9 now to take your place in the queue. Chair, there are no callers in opposition at this time.
And finally, is there anyone in the neutral position on Senate Bill 411?
Thank you, Chair. To testify in neutral on Senate Bill 411, please press *9 now to take your place in the queue. Chair, there are no callers in neutral at this time.
Thank you. So that will complete our hearing on Senate Bill 411, and we'll close that hearing, and we'll open up a hearing on Senate Bill 412. Senate Bill 412 makes an appropriation to the State Department of Agriculture for new laboratory equipment and maintenance contracts related to veterinary medical services. All right, Mr. Ferris, go ahead whenever you're ready.
Good afternoon, or good evening, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. For the record, my name is Doug Ferris. I am the
Division Administrator for Animal Industry Division, the Department of Agriculture. I'm here today to present the Senate Bill 412, which is a one-shot appropriation for veterinary medical services program. This funding will provide for the purchase of a Kingfisher Flex automated flex instrument in the amount of $53,550. This is a benchtop automated extraction instrument, which is utilized in performing PCR testing for trichomoniasis testing in livestock. The instrument will support testing by automating the extraction process. It's a common practice for laboratories to use an extraction solution that will improve workflow and reduce the possible repetitive injury to employees, as they're currently doing this as a manual process. Now, the testing is very labor intensive and requires the manual handling of all samples. The implementation of this piece of equipment would modernize molecular microbiology testing for the Elko laboratory, which will provide an increase in sample volumes, as a large amount of our testing for the Elko area is seen to go out of state, is sent out to laboratories that we see in Idaho, Utah, and Colorado. And we estimate a volume of approximately 8,500 tests annually that would be able to be completed in the Elko laboratory with this piece of equipment. In FY19, the department performed approximately 9,136 molecular tests. And then in FY20, also performed another 8,737 molecular tests. And this instrument supports the future plans for the Elko lab and carrying out those testings at the Elko laboratory. This was approved during the previous session, and it was actually removed from our budget due to budget reductions because of the pandemic. With that, I'm open for questions or comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ferris. Do any of the committee members have any questions? Senator Gocochea?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Ferris, do you have a practitioner in Elko? The last I knew, that facility was completely closed down.
Mr. Chair, through you to Senator Gocochea. Again, this is Doug Ferris for the record. Senator, that is correct. We did have a position there, and we are in the process of reclassifying the biologist position to a microbiologist position. And at the same time that we are also requesting this piece of equipment, that was placed on hold due to budget reductions of the pandemic. So the laboratory is currently closed at this time, but we're hopeful that if the hiring freeze is lifted, then we'll be able to implement that.
If I may follow up, Mr. Chair, and your PCR machine that was there, at one point they were talking about moving it down to meet some of the requirements for the COVID-19, but it is still in the facility?
For the record, Doug Ferris, we do have one older machine that is still in the Elko laboratory. We did loan out machinery that went down to the Las Vegas area that came from our Sparks laboratory. We actually took it from the Sparks laboratory and sent that down to Las Vegas to assist in the COVID-19 testing.
And that would have to be returned back to Elko too, wouldn't it, to utilize this piece of equipment you're requesting? Or are you just going to spin them and then send them to Sparks? Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Ferris.
Thank you, Senator, and thank you, Mr. Ferris. Any other questions from the committee on Senate Bill 412? All right, I do not see any. So we will go to broadcast services if there is anyone on the phone in support of Senate Bill 412.
Thank you, Chair. To testify in support on Senate Bill 412, please press *9 now to take your place in the queue. Chair, there are no callers in support at this time.
Can you see if we have anyone in opposition to Senate Bill 412?
Certainly, thank you, Chair. To testify in opposition on Senate Bill 412, please press *9 now to take your place in the queue. Chair, there are no callers in opposition at this time.
And finally, could you see if anyone is in the neutral position to Senate 412?
Thank you, Chair. To testify in neutral on Senate Bill 412, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Chair, there are no callers in neutral at this time.
All right, thank you. So that will conclude our hearing on Senate Bill 412. Thank you, Mr. Ferris. And we will close that hearing, and we will open the hearing on Senate Bill 413. Senate Bill 413 makes an appropriation to the Nevada Gaming Control Board for the continuing costs of replacement of its information system.
Good evening, Chair Brooks and members of the Senate Committee on Finance. My name is Mike Morton for the Gaming Control Board, presenting Senate Bill number 413. Senate Bill 413 appropriates approximately $5.4 million to the board for the continuation of its Alpha Migration Project, which is an ongoing agency-wide transition from the board's legacy COBOL system to new applications developed using current technologies, which will enhance functionality to both internal and external users. It will also provide easier access to licensing, casino ownership, and tax form information, as well as additional information regarding the board's enforcement cases, gaming applicant information, and gaming employee information. The board's information technology manager, Andrew Tucker, is here to answer any questions the committee may have on the project itself.
Thank you. And do you think you could state your name one more time for the record? I didn't catch that. It's a little soft. You might want to speak up just a little bit.
Mike Morton, M-O-R-T-O-N.
Thank you, Mr. Morton. And do any of the committee members have any questions on Senate Bill 413? Senator Sievers-Gansert.
Thank you, Chair Brooks. So it sounds like you're replacing a COBOL system. Did I hear that correctly?
Andrew Tucker, for the record, yes, that is true. It is a COBOL-based system that we were replacing.
Okay. It sounds also like this is part of the implementation. So what's the total cost and how many phases do you have and when do you expect to be complete?
So completion, we're expecting to work through the next biennium, through this coming biennium and then the next. Total cost, depending on this funding, probably be around the $17 to $18 million at the end. You know, that's assuming this funding is given to us and then we ask for some additional funding in the next biennium. Phases, we haven't really done this in phases per se. We're doing it in areas of functionality, and we've completed the two of the biggest ones that we have, which is our location information and tax forms. And we're working on enforcement activities right now. That's things you might be familiar with: gaming employee registration, the system that allows gaming employees to register with us, and our ability to track them through the system. We also will be going live with a time and billing system for our investigators June 30th.
Thank you. And so this is an RFP that's in place and you're implementing it per different type of job, I guess. I want to say it's not division, but different types of work. And so if the total is 17 to 18 million and this is 5.4, what do you think you have left for next biennium?
Right now, I mean, it's hard to estimate, but what we've talked about is 3 million. You know, that could go up or down depending on how things go in this next biennium.
Thank you. And this
Again,
is,
Andrew Tucker for the record.
all right, and this is an ongoing RFP, so the same company, and you have the expectation to finish it out with the same company?
Yes, yeah, we went through an RFP process at the beginning of the project and selected a partner, and they've been with us since, which has been a real benefit simply because of all the knowledge they have about the board at this point.
Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. Do any of the other committee members have any questions for the Gaming Control Board? I do not see any, so thank you, and we can go to the phones and see if we have anyone on the phone in support of Senate Bill 413.
Thank you, Chair. To testify in support on Senate Bill 413, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Chair, there are no callers in support at this time.
Thank you. Can we see if there's anyone in opposition to Senate Bill 413?
Certainly, thank you, Chair. To testify in opposition on Senate Bill 413, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Chair, there are no callers in opposition at this time.
And finally, can we see if there's anyone in a neutral position to Senate Bill 413?
Thank you, Chair. To testify in neutral on Senate Bill 413, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Chair, there are no callers in neutral at this time.
Thank you. That brings the hearing on Senate Bill 413 to an end, and we will close that hearing, and we will go to our last agenda item, which is public comment. Could you see if there is anyone on the line to make public comment, and we'll give them just a minute to see if they call in.
Certainly. Thank you, Chair. Broadcast standing by. We are currently on public comment. If you have recently joined the call and would like to provide public comment, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Chair, we don't have any public comment callers at this time.
Thank you. So that brings our meeting to an end, and this meeting of Senate Finance is adjourned. Have a good evening.